Hey everyone, my name is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and this is the Conscious Resistance Live episode 160, brought to you by Civl. Guys, I'm so excited to be back. It's been almost 2 months since I've done a podcast, since I've done this show, the Conscious Resistance Live. I've been busy with some projects I'm going to tell you guys all about, but right off the bat, I want to tell you what's brand new now that I'm back to doing regular podcasts every Monday evening. This show is now brought to you, as I said, by Civl. Now, Civl might be familiar to some of my audience who've been paying attention, especially the last couple months as we've been preparing to release the two-part conclusion, the first of two-part conclusion of the Pyramid of Power, because it came out exclusively, Chapter 17, Volume 1, exclusively on the Civl platform. And so I want to give a big thanks and just extend some warm love to everybody who has already signed up at Civl. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the episode before everybody else. It's available now publicly, of course, but we're going to continue partnering with Civl. They're now bringing you my podcast. This is going to allow me to elevate what I'm doing and to raise it to the next level. I'm going to tell you guys more about it throughout the show, but you want to go to civl.com/TCR to learn more if you want to sign up. They're a streaming platform, a podcasting network where you can find content like mine, and we're going to be working together to do some really cool things. That's civl.com/TCR. All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. We have several stories to cover tonight. Let me just give you a preview of what I'm going to be getting into. We're going to be talking about, of course, the Charlie Kirk assassination, which has obviously happened just less than a week ago. We are going to be getting deep into that, and I'm very interested to get into this with you. I don't want to say I'm excited because it's such a macabre subject matter, but I do think what I'm going to present and what we're going to digest tonight is going to be more nuanced and hopefully helpful as well as informative than the things you're hearing elsewhere on the internet. We're also going to talk about the big technocrats at the White House, Donald Trump recently having all the big tech leaders visit the White House and what this means for technocracy and the future of freedom in the United States and elsewhere. Our third story is going to be related to some new developments with ICE and biometrics and how the immigration police state continues to expand. We're also going to touch briefly on a story related to China and surveillance and American companies. And then finally, my fourth story will be about the Jeffrey Epstein press conference and rally, which took place just about 2 weeks ago. And I was in DC. For those of you who've been following along, you saw my videos and some of the clips I put together. We're going to talk all about that. And then as we wrap up tonight, I'll share with you guys a little bit about some other projects I am doing. But I also want to just mention, for anybody out there who might be new to the Conscious Resistance, this podcast that I've been doing since 2013. Maybe you discover me through Civl. Maybe you're just tuning in for the first time because I have been getting some new followers on social media recently. My name is Derrick Broze. I've been an independent journalist for the last 15 going on 16 years. I started this podcast in 2013, and it's taken this long to get to episode 160. But that's because I do a lot of different content. I don't only just talk to the camera and present to you guys my news analysis, but I also write articles. I've contributed to dozens of outlets in the independent media, most recently working with The Last American Vagabond with Ryan Christian, and I'm going to start writing soon with Whitney Webb at the Unlimited Hangout. And I also produce documentaries like The Pyramid of Power we've mentioned. I've produced documentaries about Jeffrey Epstein, the 5G Trojan Horse, the Finders Cult, 9/11, so many other topics, and there's a lots more to come now that I'm partnering with Civl. I also am the author of several books, including, you can see behind me, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State and the Conscious Resistance Trilogy, exploring the intersection of voluntarism, anarchism, and freedom in the physical realm, as well as this search for meaning and freedom in the spiritual, more esoteric, internal world. So I've been doing this for quite some time. I'm a journalist, I'm activist, I'm public speaker, documentary filmmaker, and my goal is always to get to the bottom of the stories in front of us. And so what you're going to hear tonight, I want you to think about it in terms of a true crime podcast, because not only with the Charlie Kirk situation, but with all the stories we're going to cover, we're going to touch a little bit on some of the speculation, some of the theories in these various areas, but for the most part, we're sticking to what we can prove, and we're going to push past this garbage from left and right and the corporate media, as well as what David Icke calls the mainstream alternative media, which is in full force right now. And we're going to dig past all that and see what we can actually pull up, what truths we can find, and most importantly, how we can come to a place of basic respect for other human beings. And this is what I want to say about why I'm excited to work with Civl, because Civl's whole mission as a streaming platform, as a podcasting network, and just the team behind it that I know personally, they are committed to encouraging and promoting dialogue, human respect, individual liberty, voluntary relationships, getting rid of coercion in all of our relationships. And that aligns perfectly with the message and the view that I've taken since the beginning of my activism, my journalism back in 2010. So super excited to have you guys here. Super excited to be working with Civl. Let's not waste any further time. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Just want to remind you guys, as always, visit theconsciousresistance.com. This is the place to find all of my content that I've been producing for the last 15 years, including my latest documentary. As I mentioned, The Pyramid of Power has come out, Chapter 17, Volume 1. You can find it at our website. You can also, of course, find it at thepyramidofpower.net. I would love to hear your thoughts. It is the 2-part conclusion. The next part's going to be even bigger and deeper, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. So thank you to everybody who's been supportive. And of course, once again, go to civl.com, civl.com/TCR. You can learn more about our partnership. You can get signed up for an annual subscription. You can use the code TCR 20%, TCR 20, and get 20% off your subscription there. And then one last thing I want to mention: this week, starting Thursday through this whole weekend, I'm going to be speaking in Kansas at the Thrive Alive Vegan Fest, September 18th to the 22nd. There's going to be lots of amazing artists, performers, musicians, workshops. And I am a vegan, but I also don't get along with a lot of vegans. So I'm going to be going there to rattle some cages and shake some minds loose, hopefully. So check out that. All right. Well, I don't think I need to show any clips, and we're not going to show any clips. I don't think I need to repeat what you already know. Conservative activist has been shot and killed. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, founded when he was 18, now dead at 31. It is probably just as disturbing to the current generation, if not more, in terms of trauma. The current generation, the younger generation, and I'm 40 years old, so myself and younger, we weren't alive when JFK was killed. I saw 9/11, but even some of the younger generation, they don't really remember 9/11, even if they were a couple of years old when it happened. This, in addition to COVID, watching Charlie Kirk, especially if you're a young conservative activist who really looked up to this guy, it is a traumatic event. So before we go further, I do want to just kind of throw that out there that I want to encourage my audience out there as we dive deep tonight to center yourself, to take a deep breath. This is what makes the conscious resistance different. We are going to get into some theories that are out there. We're going to talk about some of the things that I don't think line up, and we're going to question this thing to the very core. And yet, I think we also all need to take a deep breath. As we're going to cover, there are voices from left and right trying to divide the country, and not just the US, but other places in the world, trying to take advantage of this shooting to make political points and score points against their so-called political enemies. And it's sad to see, my friends. It is not the kind of thing that I believe is the solution, and I don't think it's going to lead anywhere positive long-term. The predator class absolutely thrives on the chaos and the division and us fighting each other instead of looking upwards. That doesn't mean that the left wing doesn't have problematic ideas, as well as the right wing, and we'll cover that in a bit. But we need to take a moment to try to come together. So if you listen to nothing else on this show and you don't hear the segment that we're starting here, you don't hear the whole thing, that's the takeaway. We're going to get into theories. We're going to talk about the discrepancies. We're going to talk about all of it. But the takeaway is that we need to do better if we are going to survive what we are facing, which is nothing short of tyranny on the international, potentially worldwide scale, that is being engineered and by the people in the pyramid of power that I cover, the people who are really trying to attempt to manipulate our world. And we need to rise above that. So I just wanted to start with that. Let's go ahead and get into this. Now, we're going to talk about, this is coming from CNN. We're going to look at all kinds of sources, so don't get triggered if you don't like this one. This is just the latest. The investigation of Charlie Kirk's killing continues. Here's what we know. And so I took a few notes that I'm going to share with you guys. Again, Charlie Kirk was killed last Wednesday, September 10th. They've now arrested a 22-year-old man who's from Utah, wasn't going to Utah Valley University, drove 3 hours and 30 minutes. That's going to be interesting and important later. His name is Tyler Robinson, And he was apparently living with a roommate, a transgender roommate, potentially his partner or boyfriend, girlfriend. Those details are still being sussed out. He was turned in by his father. His parents, particularly his father, recognized him in some of the images being shared and reportedly asked him directly about it. He confided in his father that it was him. His father encouraged him to talk to a pastor. The pastor then turned to the local county sheriffs, and they eventually got him. And what we've been told so far is that he was cooperative in speaking to the cops, but he's no longer cooperative. He's not communicating with them at all. Now, so that's one way that we're told that they found him. And after a day and a half, 2 days nearly of not being able to locate this person, they said it was because of his father. And then as well, the transgender roommate is now reportedly cooperating with the authorities. And from what we've heard, they're not charging this person with anything. They said they have nothing to do with it. They weren't involved. But they said that Robinson did send some texts. It's unclear, as we're going to show in a moment. Kash Patel has said that there was a note left saying that he had, quote, the opportunity to take out Kirk, and I'm going to take it. But Kash Patel of the FBI, director of the FBI, said that the message was, quote, a note as well as a text message exchange. He also said that the writing has been destroyed, but was recovered by investigators, and he did not share the full context of the text message. Now, a couple of the things that just right off the bat, we're going to get further into the theories in just a moment, but they say that the shooter, Tyler Robinson, who's alleged to be the shooter, climbed up to the top of this building, about 150 yards away from Charlie Kirk, shot him with a rifle, sniper rifle, ran to the edge of the building, jumped down, and with the backpack, because we have video of him leaving the school with the backpack, and then walked from the school up into like a wooded area and wrapped the gun in a towel and hid it there to recover later, and then went home. This is the mainstream story they're telling us, right? I want to say a couple things that don't really make sense to me, and maybe you guys have some information out there. I would love to see the comments. Let's get an active comment section tonight, please, on whatever platform you're watching right now, whether you're on Civl, whether you're on Odyssey, YouTube, etc., or you're watching this later. I want to hear your thoughts. So they claim that he jumps down after taking the shot. And then, as I said, there's the videos and the pictures that you guys have all seen with him in the black long sleeve shirt, like an American flag and sunglasses and a hat, right? That gun does not fit in that backpack. It also doesn't appear by any of the pictures or the video that he's got a rifle fully put together, hiding down the leg of his pants. Now, I will say when he's walking home in the video, he does have like a weird kind of limp, which doesn't appear in video I saw earlier today that was released by TMZ a couple hours earlier, where he apparently did a walkthrough wearing different clothes. Like he was probably maybe testing his exit and just doing a whole thing. He seems to have a limp on the way home. Now, that could be because he jumped off the top of the building and was in running and he injured himself some way. Or maybe one could argue, okay, he's got the gun hidden in there. I don't know, but it seems so odd to think this guy is in the black gear, climbs up on top of the building, takes the shot, jumps down, and again, either he doesn't take the gun apart and stuffs it down the side of his leg somehow, but it's definitely not in the backpack. Or the other argument is that he takes it apart, puts it in the backpack, then goes off the building and walks to the wooded area and leaves the gun. But before he left it, he put it back together because they claim, this is what I've seen at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they found the gun fully put together, wrapped in a towel. So he shoots the gun, takes it apart, puts it in the backpack, goes on a short walk, puts it back together, wraps it in a towel, and leaves it. It doesn't make sense to me. And again, everything tonight with the Charlie Kirk stuff specifically, I am open to being corrected, and I will issue a correction if proven wrong later. We are, of course, going to be doing a little bit of speculating because it's all fresh and it's all coming in new. But I do think these are important questions to ask. And so a lot of what I'm going to be showing tonight is going to be coming from my social media feed on Twitter, but it's also been posted elsewhere because I've been sharing a lot about this, guys. I've been asking these questions and trying to get people to think about what's happening. So hopefully you guys are thinking about this. But let's go to a tweet, the first tweet of the night. We're going to have a lot. And this is what I tweeted the night after the shooting. I know some will say it's disrespectful or too soon to ask questions regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination. Excuse me. I understand that watching the videos and hearing the news is traumatizing for many people. This is why I think it's important to ask hard questions in an attempt to get the truth, especially if you were a follower of Kirk. You should want the truth. After the first hours and days after a crime, and the first hours and days after a crime like this are the most crucial for gathering evidence and noticing discrepancies. I know that if I was ever assassinated, I would want people to question it and to get to the bottom of whatever happened. So what questions are coming to mind? Does anything look off in the video? Do you think the video claiming to show someone on a roof is accurate? This is before we knew anything about the guy. This is just sort of what I was saying. But this is where my initial thoughts were on September 11th. The first major question for me is, why did it take this long for the police and feds to find a suspect? There's cameras everywhere, including on that campus. And we know that there's various forms of video surveillance, facial recognition. I did try to look into see if Utah Valley has any public partnerships that have been discussed with facial recognition companies, the more well-known ones. I haven't seen anything about that. Doesn't mean they don't exist. We'd have to file open records requests. But I didn't see any headlines saying Utah Valley partners with this company to install facial recognition. But they do have cameras everywhere. I mean, they absolutely have cameras everywhere. That's without a doubt. And then just one other point, right? We're going to show you in a little bit a clip of Kash Patel and the governor of Utah kind of patting themselves on the back for the investigation. But as I shared with you guys a moment ago, it wasn't sleuthing from cops that solved this by them, going and doing, I don't know, any sort of police work. It was a family member and now a roommate turning this person in. So I just find that interesting. Of course, they want to take all the credit, but it doesn't seem like they actually did much. Now let's move to the next thought here. So this is where we're going to start to speculate. Again, if you think it's too early, if you think this is disrespectful, this segment isn't going to be for you. We're going to keep it respectful because we're all about human respect here, but we're going to ask the hard questions. If they make you feel uncomfortable, come back in 15 minutes. So these are the theories that I see floating around at the moment. And I like to do these kind of posts whenever a big event like this happens. I did a video similar to this early in COVID, just to kind of get it all where we can look at it. Because when there's so much information flying by, it can be confusing, overwhelming. And again, that's a point when we're in a confused, distressed state of mind, we're not thinking clearly and we can be taken advantage of. We make bad decisions, etc. So we need to think clearly. So these are the theories that I see out there at the moment. The official story is real. They got the right guy. That means Tyler Robinson. He did this, as his father has said, as his roommate is claiming. It's him. And there's apparently messages where he talks about it. So that's the official story. That's one theory. Some of you might believe that. I'm open to that idea. I'm going to make that clear right now. I'm also open to some of these other ideas. Here's another theory. The assassination was real, meaning Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. They got the right guy, meaning Tyler Robinson, but he didn't act alone. This means there was a second shooter, maybe even a third shooter, or not even shooters, but just second and third or fourth people involved in these claims. And we're not going to get into every single one of these right now. If you've been following it, I'm sure you guys have seen the videos showing that there are a couple of men, I think it's 3 or 4 of them, off to Charlie Kirk's right side. And one of them has glasses, and he looks very similar to one of the Secret Service guys who was there in Butler, Pennsylvania during Trump's alleged assassination attempt. I don't know if that's true. I can't prove it. I haven't dug into finding his name and tracking him down, but I've seen people talking about that. So there's that guy standing off to the side. There's also another guy in sunglasses with a white hat. And then behind them, there's another guy in a white shirt. There's a lot of videos you might see out there claiming that these guys are doing some kind of hand signals. And I'll tell you guys, it certainly looks weird. It certainly looks weird because when Charlie Kirk is speaking and answering this question, the moment before the shot happens and you see blood start going everywhere, you hear the shot, the guys to his right, again, the white hat guy kind of tips his hat, does something else. Then the other guy does full on baseball signals. He's moving arms, shuffling a little bit, tap. It doesn't at first I was okay, come on. I know how we conspiracy theorists can be. We can speculate, we can jump to conclusions, but I don't really see any other explanation for what that guy is doing. At first, again, I thought, okay, maybe he's just moving and it's awkward and people are reading too much into it. But no, there's something going on there. We can't prove that means he was signaling the shooter, but the timing certainly lines up. There's these 2 guys, one's tipping the hat, one's doing some more arm stuff, pop, gunfire goes off. That's part of these theories that, again, as I said, there's people who say the assassination was real. They got the right guy, but he didn't act alone. So Robinson shot the gun and somebody else was, these other people were signaling him or working with him. And then there's one other piece to that I'll just mention. There's another guy in a dark blue shirt, sort of like within 5 feet to the right of Charlie Kirk. And this guy has his arms folded like this, and you can kind of see he's got a cell phone or something under his arm here. And he also sort of turns at the moment that the gunshot goes off. And so I've seen people out there going out there, and there's products like, you can find super compact guns, and they advertise them as looks like a smartphone. It folds up and this, and nobody will even realize it as, a protection device. So some people are speculating maybe what the phone he's holding under his arm, and the moment he moves, it's not actually coming from across the building in front of Charlie Kirk, which I know there's a lot of people, I'm no ballistics expert or gun expert or anything like this, but the trajectory of the bullet coming here and hitting him in the neck, and he kind of pops this way. Well, the guy standing to his right, people are claiming, that guy actually fired the shot, and then that makes him go this way. I don't know if that lines up, because I think then the bullet hole would have been on this side, the blood would have come out this way. It would be a hard angle for the guy on that side to get him on this side. Anyways, I'm just summarizing some of these points, guys. I'm not endorsing any of these particular claims. I'm just making it clear to you these are the kind of things that are going out there. So this all, and there's others, but this generally fits under the category of the assassination was real, they got the right guy, but he didn't act alone. And that means, again, there were additional people, whether it's these people signaling to the shooter, which it is potentially Tyler Robinson, or if it's the guy to the right, that kind of goes into the next one. The assassination was real, but they got the wrong shooter. The real shooter, this is what I was just talking about, was the guy standing to Kirk's right with a small gun under his arm, and the guys making hand signals were involved somehow. So one theory is the first guy that tips the hat's like, hey, get ready. And then the second one's like, yep, you're good to go. And then boom, the shot goes off. Again, there's other claims. Of course, there's other claims saying, yes, the shooter, forget the guys to the side, or at least the guy with the alleged gun under his arm, but the shot did come from off the roof, but it wasn't Tyler Robinson. That kind of fits into the same category here. The assassination is real, but they got the wrong shooter. Okay, and then a next theory, the entire assassination is staged. Charlie Kirk was actually involved, and the death was faked. And I know that some of you are going to have a real hard time with that one. I'm trying to remain open to all possibilities, but I don't necessarily think this is the strongest possibility. Now, this goes into people looking at his magnetic lapel mic that he has here. And then at the moment the shot takes place, his shirt sure does jump up and do some weird thing. Like, I've tried to think about it, and what would make that happen? A bullet coming at fast speed, maybe it pushed the air up and caused his shirt to jump. And, as we freeze frame it, it looks really weird. Other people say, no, you can see something bulging up from his shirt and hitting him right in the neck. And so there's theories about, no, they've got a squib pack. This is like going into Hollywood production stuff, which is absolutely real. You can find the videos out there of people showing you the quality of production that Hollywood is capable of and making it look like we see in the movies. Oh, no, somebody's neck just got blown off and there's blood squirting everywhere. Oh, my God, that looks pretty real. So some people think the whole thing is faked, and there was a squib, under his shirt, and it popped up right when the gunshot went off. It goes pop, hits him in the neck. He starts squirting everywhere, and then they immediately grab him and rush him off the stage. Nobody ever sees his body again until, of course, his wife Erica Kirk does some very weird video with him in the casket. People are saying the hands look faked. I don't know. So where's Charlie Kirk? Of course, the question is, well, some people joke, oh, he's sitting off at a beach in Israel with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know. This one does feel pretty far-fetched, but I don't think these things are beyond the realm of possibilities, especially when you get into stuff like crisis actors. I do think people go a little too far, and they make claims they can't prove. Nevertheless, I do think that there might be something here. Now, and then one of the final things I say here is that and then what I consider to be the bottom of the barrel, the least likely claims, are the whole thing was staged using AI and holograms. So this is not even that it was staged and Charlie Kirk had a squib in his neck. It's that everybody who was there in person heard a gunshot and they must have started running away. And so the gunshot goes off and his team grabs him real quick and takes him down. But then using AI and holograms, they were able to make all the recordings look like there's blood coming out. I don't think this is very credible. I will say there are definitely more and more cameras that are installing AI built into it, and that could lead to some problems in the future where AI could literally generate images or alter images as they're being filmed in real time. So you would film something and it's like, hey, this is a real event I'm filming, but the theory would be that it could still be changed or altered. Like I said, I think this is the least likely case. At the moment, I think Charlie Kirk is dead. I think Tyler Robinson probably did it. The evidence continues to point in that direction. Now, whether or not he was working with somebody else, I don't know. But that's kind of where we're at. But my thoughts in terms of theories are this. This feels like 9/11, COVID-19 84, and every other major event of the past. There's lots of theories and questions, and there's very little answers. The other thing that comes to mind is that even if the official story is or was real, I think the majority of you out there won't even accept it. So ask yourself this, is there anything that the authorities, the police, could do to convince you that what we're being told is real? And I'm open to it, even though I think it's unlikely. But what this reminds me of is that in 2017, the Bilderberg Group met, and one of their topics of discussion was the post-truth world. And I believe that the confusion and the chaos and the lack of a shared reality serves the agenda of the ruling class. So they get it to a point where this is also kind of goes to this infamous quote you guys have probably seen out there on the internet sometime, that there was a former CIA director, I can't remember, I think it was William Casey, who said that we'll know our disinformation campaign is complete when they can't tell truth from lies, when they can't tell fiction from reality. And they're talking about us. And that's what I often think about, is that like an incident like this happens and we are all in questioning mode. And it's great. It's great that, conspiracy culture has gone so mainstream. Questioning of authority has gone so mainstream. It's also at the same time sad that the moment things like this happen, there's a million different theories. Nobody can agree on anything. And that's what I say. It reminds me of 9/11 and COVID-19 84, because I used to go to 9/11. We just passed the 9/11 anniversary right after the Charlie Kirk shooting. I used to go to 9/11 every year and talk to activists on the street and pass out flyers to people and talk to people from all around the world. And we would reach many, many people. But at the end of the day, there would always be this bickering over whose theory was correct. Was it the Israelis? Was it holograms? Was it nukes? Was it a controlled demolition? Was it, directed energy weapons? And there was all these theories and all this bickering. And we couldn't just come to a place that we all agree that, hey, we've been lied to. We don't know exactly what happened. You can maybe think that your ego has it all figured out, and that's fine if you want to do that. But we can at least try to acknowledge we don't know what happened. So why don't we focus on that and focus on poking holes in the things we can't prove to create, to help other people find the search for truth, instead of just bickering and arguing and calling each other shills over believing in slightly different theories. I don't know. Seems it just doesn't seem very effective or helpful at the moment. Now let's continue on. We're going to continue asking some of these hard questions about Charlie Kirk. You're listening to the Conscious Resistance Live. My name is Derrick Broze. This show is brought to you by Civl. All right. Now, this was another thing I saw going around about how there was a plane that left the area, a private plane that left the area shortly after the shooting, and that it turned off its transponder for a certain period of time after it left Utah. And so I just shared this article. Owner of plane at center of Charlie Kirk shooting conspiracy theory speaks out about his plane. Now, I will preface this by saying this is a People magazine article. I haven't read People magazine since I was a kid, and my mom used to get them all the time, and I just like to read, so I read everything I could. But it is a tabloid for the most part. It's all about celebrities. So when I share this, some people are like, "Oh God, Derrick, the People magazine, you're really taking that seriously? I can't believe you." And guys, if you take that kind of stance, you're just as bad as the people who reject quote unquote conspiracy sites because it's not from the Washington Post or New York Times. Every source can be correct and accurate sometimes. Others can be, just like the Washington Post can be wrong, People can be right or wrong. But the point is, this isn't People magazine breaking the story. It's literally just them. They put together a quick little article, really a blog about this person who owned the plane. His name was Derrick Maxfield, CEO of Comigo, an online marketing company. And he shared a statement on his Instagram page. So this isn't People magazine. This is literally just them summarizing his Instagram. So, for people who are triggered by it coming from People, get over it, and you can just go follow the link to his Instagram and read it for yourself. He says, quote, "As often happens, unfortunately, in the wake of such terrifying public events, a variety of baseless theories and suspicions around Mr. Kirk's murder immediately took hold on social media, including one that has unfairly impacted our family." He goes on to talk about this. Again, the concern was that social media users were saying that the private jet that departed the airport about an hour after the shooting, which took place around 12 p.m. local time, they say that according to Flight Radar 24, the Bombardier Challenger 300 departed PBU around 1:11 local time, and that for about 15 minutes or maybe an hour, it says around 1:43, the jet approached the northern border of Arizona and the plane turned off its automatic dependent surveillance broadcast, ADSB, which provides positioning information between the aircraft and air traffic control. Tracking information for the aircraft appeared shortly after 2:30 p.m. as the plane departed Page Municipal Airport in Arizona back towards Provo, Utah. So for 45 minutes, the transponder on the plane turns off, and people basically say, like, look, this is it. Maybe the real assassin ran off the building, jumps in a plane. The plane turns off the transponder. They get dropped off somewhere. The plane turns the transponder back on, right? That was the conspiracy theory. The guy continued, the owner of the plane says, quote, yesterday at approximately 1:20 p.m. Mountain Time, a private aircraft owned by one of our 4 companies with tail number N888KG departed Provo Airport for Page, Arizona, pursuant to a pre-scheduled flight plan. Radar services with air traffic control were terminated, and mutual agreement between Denver FAA Center and N888KG, approximately 10 miles from landing at PGA, which is consistent with generally accepted standard practice when flying in and out of non-towered airports like PGA. I don't know enough about flying to know whether that's true. I would love for any of you out there who have flown on private planes or have your own or worked in the industry. Is that true? Is that, quote, generally accepted standard practice to turn off your transponder 10 miles out of a non-towered airport? That's what he's claiming, and I'm just providing this information because people are speculating about it. He says that the pilots of the plane followed all FAA requirements and protocols, tower directions, and predetermined flight plan. Any suggestion that the flights by N888KG yesterday are any way connected to the tragic shooting of Mr. Kirk is inaccurate, false, and without any credible basis of any kind. To our knowledge, no one associated with yesterday's flight by N888KG has been contacted by law enforcement for any reason. So that means the cops aren't looking into it. They don't find it credible. Maybe they haven't heard it by now, but I'm sure they're monitoring social media and they're seeing the claims about it. But again, you don't have to trust the guy. You don't have to believe it. I just want to share in case you are out there and you're going to say, Derrick, what about the plane? Well, this is what they're claiming about that plane. Again, it's up to you. You decide how credible you think that is, but that's what they're saying at the moment. All right, guys, as we continue our look into the Charlie Kirk assassination, we're going to take a moment to look at some more esoteric elements. And I know this is going to be, again, difficult for some of you or new. I don't know, but I think it's worth looking at. And this is the fact that there have been several mentions of the number 33 throughout the course of this investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination. We're not going to do a full episode here on the importance of 33, but if you know my work, you know that I'm also a conscious rapper who goes under the name 33, because I understand that 33 is what some people would call a master number or a manifestation number or an angel number. There's all these kind of names people give it. I don't know about any of that. All I know is that it has a power. It's been influential in my life. My life transformed when I turned 33. And I also know that the various secret societies, particularly the Freemasons, do have different degrees in their esoteric knowledge. And that includes a 32nd degree. And people speculate that 33 is the top of the pyramid for that sort of progression, or at least if not the top, one of the upper levels of the hierarchy of the Freemasons and other secret societies. So even if you don't believe any of that, I encourage you, I want to encourage you to start looking at the media and look for the number 33. Now, some people will say, of course, well, if I'm looking for it, of course, I'm going to see it. But I don't know. There sure are a lot of incidents with 33 victims or 33 times or 33 this. It starts to pop up. And with big events like this, with this alleged assassination, some people see this and they think that it's sort of a wink and a nod from those in the know, the so-called illuminated, right? Saying to anybody else out there who's in the know, hey, we're in control. This is our job, et cetera, et cetera. Again, you don't have to believe any of that, but I want to show you a clip at the very least. In fact, 2 clips. This was taking place, I believe it was Thursday on 9/11 or maybe September 12th, after they had arrested Tyler Robinson. I think it was Friday, after they identified him and turned him in. And again, this is Kash Patel of the FBI, and then Spencer Cox, the Utah governor, patting themselves on the back for their great investigation, even though, as I said earlier, they didn't even catch the guy. He was turned in by family members. Nevertheless, take note of what Kash Patel says right here.
Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where, at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period.
In less than 36 hours, 33 to be exact. I'm going to play that one more time. I want you to look at the way he looks at the camera when he says 33. Just check it out.
Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where, at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah.
Okay, so I think you guys get it there now. Let me show you one more. This is Governor Spencer Cox just a couple minutes later after Kash Patel speaks, sharing his thoughts.
I want to thank my fellow Utahns. This bad stuff happens, and for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us.
All right, I'm gonna stop it. We're gonna play it one more time. Again, look at for 33 hours, looks at Kash Patel and a little bit of a chuckle. Why the chuckle? I don't know. Check it out.
I want to thank my fellow Utahns. This bad stuff happens, and for 33 hours, I was praying that
for 33 hours he was praying. He goes on. Now, that's not the only thing here. Let me go ahead and show you one other thing here. This is a post I made on Twitter. It's an article. Let me zoom in a little bit. Interesting. Students, this is the title of the article. Students and professor question Utah Valley University security after fatal shooting. One of the students says, 33 minutes with a shooter on campus is a long time for somebody so inclined to do a lot of damage. This article is basically saying, and I think this is part of the official story now, that he was officially on campus for 33 minutes. They say he drove 3 hours and 30 minutes. So there's a 33 there. 3 hours and 33 minutes, 30 minutes, not 33, 3 hours and 30 minutes, because he didn't go to Utah Valley University. He had to drive there. So he drove 3 hours and 30 minutes to get there. He's on campus for 33 minutes. And then it takes them, according to Kash Patel, the FBI director, and the governor of Utah, it took them 33 hours to catch him. I don't know. And now some of you will see this and say, okay, well, Derrick, if you're pointing out all these 33 incidences, then why do you call yourself 33? So let me just briefly explain before we move on and continue with some questions surrounding the Charlie Kirk assassination. When I was 33 years old, my birth father died of a drug overdose. He'd been struggling with drug addiction his entire life, my entire life. And in that space, I found hip hop. I started listening to instrumental beats, and all these words started pouring out of me. I started writing, I started just rapping, and none of it was really good in the beginning, but it just started to come out of me, and it was a very healing journey. I come from a metal and punk background, being a screaming and growling vocalist. I'd never done rap or hip hop before, but all of a sudden, at the age of 33, my birth father dies. This really healing thing takes place. I also, you can look at the importance of 33. Some people say Christ was resurrected at the age of 33. Buddha became enlightened at the age of 33. You have 33 vertebrae actually And I do believe that these tools like numbers and symbology are just tools, and they're spiritual technology. So they might use them for their own purposes and say 33 hours and 3 hours and 30 minutes and 33 minutes. But that doesn't mean every number of 33 out there is evil, or means somebody is a shill or a satanic devil worshiper, or that every time you see a pyramid, you should run away and scream and be afraid. We should recognize that we have the power to reclaim these symbols and these numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. Now, this is going to get into a little bit of some of the questions around the transgender discussion, because as I mentioned, we now know that Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooter, his roommate is transgender. Originally, there was stuff going on, as I'm going to show you, claiming that he was transgender, and the right wing was ready to just stoke that division again and say, oh, look, another crazed transgender person. This is why we need to, go after them or ban them or just whatever. But this is one thing I said. It's an odd coincidence that the Charlie Kirk shooting happened when the question that he was answering was about transgender violence, and now we're told that the cartridges from the shooting were engraved with transgender ideology. That was the original story. That's not true anymore, and we're going to show you where that came from. But that was the thing that I think is odd. Okay, so Charlie Kirk is answering a question. Somebody's asking him about how often transgender violence has happened, because he made some statements, and I think he probably exaggerated the amount of violence that comes from the transgender community. This person was there to kind of criticize him and have a debate with him, which is what Charlie Kirk did. And that person actually has gone on his social media and spoken up, and he said, like, look, I had nothing to do with this. It's just a sick twist of fate. I was asking a question and he was shot. And, if you guys out there are making crazy claims, he's not a conspiracy theorist, just like some left-wing dude who was asking a question, and he said he's gone back and forth with Charlie Kirk before. But unless he was in on it, it's just one of those things. Could just be a coincidence. But like I said, the question was about transgender violence. And then there was reports like this, starting with Steven Crowder, who's another right-wing conservative provocateur who I do not trust or respect, and I don't think anybody should be listening to him. Just want to make that clear. He put out this on September 11th. Exclusive. This morning, my team received an email from an officer at ATF. This email included a screenshot from what appears to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by ATF near the scene. And it does say, you can see the screenshot of, it's like a screenshot from somebody's phone of the text, allegedly from an ATF agent or somebody who had access. And it says, all cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. Now, we have since learned that that's not true. Yes, there was an anti-fascist song, Ciao Bello, which is also on Netflix and other places, but people were like, this is proof of Antifa. That's kind of a whole nother conversation. But there's nothing on there about transgender. There is these arrows pointing and stuff that are from a video game. There's some meme, notices bulge and stuff like that you guys might have seen, and people are claiming that's transgender. But if you go to the website knowyourmeme.com, which is really useful for these kind of things, it might even be linked here, knowyourmeme.com, you can learn that the notices bulge is more to do with furry subculture. And Tyler Robinson's roommate, which I believe the name is Lance Twiggs, based on my research, did appear to be into the furry subculture. For those who don't know, go look it up. People who like to dress as animals. It's kind of sexual for some of them, for most of them probably. But that's not specifically and directly linked to transgender anything. But when I saw this, I said, look, more reason to push for the DOJ calls for banning guns for trans people. Just last week, after the shooting at the Catholic school, I think it was in Minnesota, which there was a transgender person related to that, Trump's DOJ floated the idea that they were going to ban guns for transgender people and basically say they're mentally ill, so they shouldn't have guns. And then you had even the NRA, the gun lobby, which I don't support the NRA. I think they're one of the more mainstream kind of controlled gun lobby. Even they came out, though, and other gun groups and said, no, this is anti-Second Amendment. You don't have to like transgender people to see that they have the right, like everybody else, to own guns. And I think that they're correct. If you start saying, well, this group can't have guns, it's a foot in the door to start saying these other groups can't have guns. And as I mentioned here, of course, gun restrictions on trans people won't be the end. The claim will be that it's just for quote unquote mentally ill people. But how quick will that definition expand? Like, for example, let's say that we were told, well, anti-Semitic people, they're kind of mentally ill, so we shouldn't let them have guns. Oh, those conspiracy theorists, they're mentally ill, so they shouldn't have guns. So I'm bringing this up because, for one, two things. this story that Steven Crowder was sent by allegedly by an ATF source turns out not right. That yes, there were engravings on the shooting, on the bullets. Maybe they just got it wrong and they confused furries with transgenders. But it seems just so, like, again, this is an example. We're going to start talking about how people who are stoking the division. Steven Crowder just wants to make a point against transgender people and against the left wing. And so he runs with this. Did the government send him that or some agent to kind of create confusion? Because as soon as that came out, the right wing starts jumping up and saying, see, well, I knew it. It's Trantifa, it's the Antifa, it's these deranged transgender, and just want to play into that culture war, into that division, which I don't play into at all. And as I said, this comes on the heels of the Trump DOJ floating the idea of banning guns for trans people. It just seems to be so perfect. And then add on top of that the question that was being asked was related to trans people. Something about that doesn't sit right with me, guys. Again, not saying that proves that the whole thing is fake or anything like that, but it just feels so odd that all those pieces kind of play in the favor of the predator class who sits at the top of the pyramid of power, who would like for us to be divided and fighting amongst ourselves. So let's look out for those who are trying to divide us. As I say right here on Twitter, pay attention to who wants to keep you trapped in the left-right divide and conquer paradigm. This was from Alex Jones, literally within 24 hours. The Democrats were threatened by Charlie Kirk, so they killed him. We will never let this message be silenced. Emergency warning, the Democratic deep state killed Charlie Kirk in a desperate attempt to shut down populist free speech and conservative nationalist voting recruitment on college campuses. With no evidence. And so this guy, Alex Jones, is just such a, I used to listen to him back in 2009, 2010. It's been a long time, but this guy is long sold out. And thankfully, nearly 4,000 people like this comment. And so I think that means that there are others who are checking the temperature of the room and seeing, like, okay, there's crazy people. Let's see some more. You got Steven Crowder out there just trying to make political points about trans people. You got Alex Jones. Immediately, it's the Democratic deep state. And this is one thing I talked about in Chapter 17 of the Pyramid of Power, that under Trump, we have been tricked and deceived to think that the so-called deep state is just the Democrats. That's a big part of their deception that they play. It's just the Democrats. Pay no attention to the right wing, the Republican conservatives. We're the good elitists. We're the good billionaires. We're fighting back against those regressive, satanic Democrat, blah, blah, whatever. That's part of the control. They want you to only look at one side and not pay attention to the other. Now, also, Tim Pool. I said, idiots like Tim Pool can only see the world through the false left-right binary, and they want to stoke division. Tim Pool posted, he says, the left is already gaslighting to claim that the shooter was a groyper, even though The Guardian is reporting that friends called him a leftist. That was from The Guardian, right? But as Tim, because he doesn't keep up or apologize for making mistakes, as I said here, by the way, Tim, The Guardian has now removed the claim that Robinson was a leftist. Editor's note, the article was updated on September 12th to remove quotes after the verified source who attended high school with him said after publication that they could not accurately remember details of their relationship. Now, maybe they changed their mind because they were scared or nervous or whatever. The governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, the one who said 33 hours with a chuckle, he's claiming that, the guy was infected and the last 24 hours, now they're claiming he was infected by a quote-unquote leftist ideology, even though he grew up in a conservative, MAGA-loving family. He grew up around guns. His family, his mom said they don't know a single Democrat or leftist in their neighborhood. That doesn't mean he couldn't have gone off on his own, but it's important. But the point is that people like Tim Pool and Steven Crowder and Alex Jones, they're trying to make it's just the Democrats, it's just the leftists, and they're trying to come after our side. And unfortunately, there are some really ugly people on the left and Democrats side and kind of progressives who are out there stomping on Charlie Kirk memorials, and they're out there, celebrating his death. And we're going to talk about that in a moment because I do think it is a complex issue, but emotions are high. And this is not how you get to a better world, my friends. This is not how you get to understanding, by stomping on memorials, by accusing the other side of being killers and thugs and fascists. And let's be clear, a lot of Trump supporters don't want to acknowledge this because right now the narrative is, well, the left is going crazy and they're coming after and assassinating people because for the last decade they've been told that the right are fascists. But make no mistake, Donald Trump also called Kamala Harris a fascist and Biden a fascist. You can find the clips out there during the election. So it's both sides calling, they're Marxist, communists, they're fascist, nationalists. And in some ways, they're right. Both groups are authoritarian statists who would use the government on you to get their way. And that's what makes them both dangerous. Yes, it does appear the left appears to be more radicalized at the moment, but that doesn't mean that the right wing is all, rainbows and sunshine and they just love liberty and trying to look out for people and they're just trying to defend us against the crazy left. I think both sides are insane. So, okay, that's one thing. Tim Pool kind of trying to make it all about it's left versus right thing. Let's look at another here. Well, I see the divide and conquer is working great in the United States and the UK. And this is because this past weekend, there were some big protests in the UK. We'll probably be talking to my buddy Dan Aston Gregory next week's show about that. For now, we're going to set that aside. But the point is the division is working all over the world. And then here you go, Andrew Tate, the provocateur idiot who is not a good role model for any young man or woman. Civil war. That's his comment. He commented this shortly after the shooting. It's been seen 19 million times, liked 218,000 times. There's 10,000 comments here. A vast majority of them are supportive, but there's also people who are calling him out, thankfully. And I said, right on cue, don't listen to horrible people like Tate. The predator class would love more violence. And that is the absolute truth. And that brings me to my next point here. Don't forget that the mantra of the predator class and the politician puppets is never let a good crisis go to waste. Stay tuned for new legislation or for calls for more government in the wake of this assassination. Because that's what it ultimately comes down to. It is that these people in power, the predator class and the people who control and manipulate politicians, they will always use incidents like this to try to divide us and to tear us apart. And we need to rise above that, my friends. We need to find that little bit of humanity in ourselves and look at the other people and say, okay, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican. And I'm saying this to myself. I struggle with this. I don't like talking to Trump supporters and any more than I like talking to, blind Hillary supporters or Biden supporters, Obama supporters. But it's just I have to get past that. And I this is your reminder, Derrick. Get past that. Talk to them. Find the avenue to connect in a human way. Even though I believe you guys are totally wrong. Even though I know you want to use the violence of government against me. Even though I know that you are supporting authoritarian policies from left and from right. How do I connect to you? How do I find that humanity? That's my great struggle right now. But whoever you are, if you're more conservative or you're more liberal, whatever, put some of those things aside. I'm not saying let's turn a blind eye to violence. Like I said, we're about to talk about some of the realities of what Charlie Kirk was about. But if we don't want to go to civil war, and I don't think the vast majority of people do, then we need to find a way to connect and find the humanity within each of us. I want to talk as well, just briefly, the whole MAGA crowd and conservatives, they made a big deal about how cancel culture is a thing of the left and the snowflakes, the libtards, they can't handle free speech. So if I say the N-word or if I say retarded or I say something mean, they're going to come try to dox me and fire me and get me, canceled, etc. That was a thing of the left. And a lot of people have railed against it, and Elon Musk and other people said, no, we're all for absolute free speech absolutism. And now all of a sudden, as I say here, it's disturbing to see how quickly conservatives and MAGA have become the cancel culture crowd. And I know people are going to say it's about an assassination, Derrick, but your efforts to get people canceled, it's the exact opposite of what Charlie Kirk claimed to believe in. He said he was a free speech absolutist and that he didn't think people should be canceled for things that they said. Now, I'm sure he would make exceptions if it was against Israel. But the point is, he claimed to be a free speech absolutist, and now his supporters are like, look, anybody who's out there celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, we're getting them fired. Now, on one hand, I get it. Does anybody want the teacher of your children to be a person who is going to celebrate somebody's death and, cheer it on and just some of the ugly things we've seen? Probably not. I get why you don't want them around your kids. But the idea of targeting people, making lists of them, it is literally the mirror image of the other side. And I was also reminded, though, that this isn't anything new for conservatives. You can go back to post 9/11 and the right wing, the Republicans, they basically canceled Dixie Chicks for having wrong think about 9/11, for questioning and criticizing Bush. So it's not the first time we've seen this. Now, we're going to start to wrap up here with a few more points. I want to point out this article from the Gray Zone. I think this is one of the best pieces available right now. Charlie Kirk refused Netanyahu's funding offer, was frightened by pro-Israel forces before death. Friend revealed. This is according to a source who spoke to the Gray Zone. And I do think the Gray Zone is, generally speaking, a good source of independent journalism when it comes to geopolitics, particularly Israel. Max Blumenthal and Anya Perempio. Great job here. putting this together. And this kind of just summarizes some of the different points here. The general idea, though, is that while Charlie Kirk absolutely was a Zionist, and as they show here, like that, as soon as he launched Turning Point USA in 2012, he was receiving money from Zionist donors through neoconservative outfits like David Horowitz's Freedom Center. He repaid his wealthy backers over the years by unleashing a relentless fire hose of anti-Palestinian and Islamophobic diatribes, accepting propaganda trips to Israel, and sternly shutting down nationalist forces challenging his support for Israel during Turning Point USA. So the MAGA group that we're saying, MAGA isn't MEGA, it's not Make Israel Great Again. Charlie, why are you doing this? He shut down those groups. And there's a big conflict between Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, who, of course, started the American First PAC and event. Turning Point USA has these huge events every year, and they do these college tours and stuff where they're reaching lots of young conservatives. And so he did, though, this with the help of billionaire Zionists. And then they also say, there's more, just kind of emphasizing how Charlie Kirk was clearly a Zionist. But apparently in the last 2 years, starting with right after the October 7th event, Charlie Kirk started questioning it. Now, of course, we should also note that he was denying that there was a famine going on in Gaza. I have a clip of that, which is very recent. He was spreading disinformation about babies being beheaded by Hamas on October 7th, and in general was just following the party line. But then in the last couple of months, he starts questioning if Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset of the Israelis. He starts asking whether or not the Israeli government allowed October 7th attacks to happen so they could achieve their long-term political goals. And he also recently went on some interviews. He went to talk to, at the Turning Point Student Action Summit recently in July. He had Dave Smith, who's, of course, the critic of Israel. He had Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson, who are also both critics of Israel or recently have become critics of Israel. And he let them talk about Jeffrey Epstein, and they openly taunted Zionist billionaires like Bill Ackman for getting away with scams despite having no actual skills. Now, this has led a lot of people to believe that, okay, so Charlie Kirk has been a diehard Zionist for years, but in the recent, basically starting with October 7th, he started asking some questions. And in recent months, he starts platforming people like Tucker Carlson. He starts platforming some other people who are asking questions. And then one of his last interviews he did, curiously enough, was with what's his name, Ben Shapiro, the super diehard Zionist, and always wearing his yarmulke everywhere, a Jewish man. Not to say that just because he's a Jew, he's a bad guy. I know some of you out there are going to come with that stuff, but the point is he's a diehard Zionist for sure. And so one of his final interviews, as you can see right here on the screen, Charlie Kirk interviews Ben Shapiro about his new book, but he takes a second to ask these kind of questions. He says, a friend said to me, interestingly, Charlie, okay, we pushed back against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border. Maybe we should ask the question, is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just ask the question. And you can see Ben Shapiro looking clearly uncomfortable. And, from there, the Gray Zone talks to his friend, and they said that according to his friend, that Charlie was being told kind of behind the scenes that there were Zionists who were upset at him, that apparently also Netanyahu had offered him some money and he turned it down. And it's interesting that, of course, when he died or when the shooting allegedly took place, Trump was the first person to announce it. And almost immediately, I think literally at the same time or right afterwards, Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, of course, he starts tweeting his condolences and saying he's so sorry. And so Candace Owens said, I think in the end, Charlie was going through a spiritual transformation. I know it. He was going through a lot. There was a lot of pressure, and it's hard for me to watch the people who were pressuring him just say the things that they're saying. So Candace Owens seems to think that there's an Israel connection. I'm not saying we can prove it for certain, but this is what a lot of people are thinking, is that, like, okay, Charlie Kirk had a lot of influence. He was influencing young conservatives. He's going out publicly and engaging with people. And if he was to become an anti-Zionist or even just question it too strongly, that was something that the Israeli lobby couldn't stand. Now, as this tweet shows, Netanyahu was actually asked about this on Newsmax. He said that claims that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk are just crazy, without evidence. And it's just interesting that he felt so strongly about this conspiracy theory, which is all it is at the moment, circulating, that he felt the need to address it and say, look, we didn't kill Charlie Kirk. I will include this in the show notes, as with all the other links that we're going over. A couple other points on that, though. I did find this article in The Nation. I will include this below. And the article says that, according to this person, Charlie Kirk's death is not worth mourning. And they say that because, look, the reality, this is them, I'm quoting them, quote, his entire business was saying the other side was evil and dehumanizing them. The debates were simply performances, and he could not have an entertaining public fight without opposition. Turning Point did not work to bring people together. It worked to bring about a country where anyone who wasn't a white Christian nationalist wasn't welcome. I won't celebrate his death, but I'm not obligated to celebrate his life either. And I think that there's some truth to that. I think that, again, to me, this guy is a Trump supporter, and that doesn't mean every Trump supporter should be getting assassinated. Don't take my words out of context or anything like that. I don't support political violence, assassinations, anything like that. But what I'm saying is that we have people of left and right who have abhorrent views and who are supporting authoritarianism and violent systems. And we shouldn't ignore that just because we're sad that they were assassinated or because we don't support the assassination, we don't support political violence. We should be real about their legacies and what took place. Here's a comment from Eric Wickstrom from Twitter. A few comments, and he's talking about Charlie Kirk, a few comments lightly questioning Israel after a decade of willfully spreading disinformation to justify oppression, displacement, torture, and genocide is now worthy of applause. That's kind of his response of what he's saying there. And this is in response to a tweet that I put out there showing that Charlie Kirk said that there is no starving taking place in Israel. He claimed that that was all just fake news, debunked, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know. I don't know how to take that, guys. This, again, people are not black and white. We all are complex humans. We have good, we have bad inside of us. But I think it's worth noting that not all of Charlie Kirk's views were that great. He was a Zionist. He supported the authoritarian systems that Donald Trump is bringing in. He shouldn't have been killed for it, but we shouldn't turn him into a martyr and lionize him without acknowledging the truth of his legacy. Now, this other article here, this kind of goes to what I was saying a moment ago about the Civil War claims. Most Americans do not want civil war. Anyone who is declaring it should stop it. I will include this link in there as well because I think this article is worth reading. It's called The Age of Assassination. And this is just a little snippet from it. It says, in the days since Kirk's killing, I've noticed a profound difference between the people who are attempting to de-escalate and inspire calm versus those who are lashing out and pitting Americans against each other. Those who mock or celebrate Kirk's death are part of a cycle of worsening violence. Those who have declared war or call their political opponents evil are part of the same. We're not supposed to say this, the MAGA influencer / venture capitalist Sean McGuire tweeted yesterday, but the truth is we're at war. Now, he later claimed, I'm not saying go for violence, I'm just saying we got to be loud as hell. Then you have Andrew Tate, as I said, saying civil war. You got MAGA influencer libs of TikTok saying this is war. And America is now quite obviously deep into this particular cycle of violence with no clear notion of where and how it will end. Acts of political violence in the past 12 months alone have included the murder of the healthcare CEO in Manhattan, an arson attack against the governor of Pennsylvania, the murder of a protester in Colorado, the murder of a Minnesota state representative in her home, and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Every deed of political violence in America is churned through ideological and algorithmic machinery of the social web that spits out louder and uglier calls for more violence still. And America's enemies abroad are among those who perpetuate this cycle of escalation. And this final piece here, those who are now fantasizing about war in America and those cheering the murder of a fellow citizen have no earthly understanding of what truly pervasive political violence does to a society. The Civil War, the U.S.'s defining conflict, should only haunt us. The terrible appetite for death, the nurses in blood-drenched aprons, the flies swarming the battlefields, some 800,000 Americans dead. None of us should wish for this or call for it, but let us also not suffer the failure of imagination that would prevent us from seeing it coming, for such negligence risks being itself a catalyst for catastrophe. So I will include the link to that. And I just want to add to that over the last 10 years, as this sort of political division has increased under Donald Trump, and I did write from the very beginning that I believe the role Donald Trump was chosen for. Yes, I said chosen because every president is selected, not elected. They are puppets of the predator class, including Donald Trump, that he was selected to be a divider, to divide and just tear apart the country to bring about the chaos that we know that these people want for the order that they crave. So I think that's exactly what we're seeing. And so during Donald Trump's reign of the last 10 years of him being around and relevant and constantly in our faces, we've seen this increase of labeling your political enemies domestic terrorists, domestic extremists. And you can find these reports. Go to theconsciousresistance.com. Look at our section called The Trump Deception. You will find me talking about this and warning you guys that labeling the other side terrorists, domestic enemies, or now gang members or fascists, it is only a race to the bottom. It does not help us get to a place of peace and love and respect and building the better world. You're not going to do that by using force and violence. I just want to make that clear. So please do read that article. We're nearly done with this Charlie Kirk session. I promise you we got a couple other stories we're going to cover, but there's a lot to say here tonight, as you guys are seeing. A couple more points. For the people who are fixated on the left, I want you to look at this interview I did with Jeffrey Tucker back in 2017. If you doubt that the right has a capacity for violence and authoritarianism, this is an interview about Tucker's book called Right-Wing Collectivism, The Other Threat to Liberty. I'll include that in the show notes as well. And then this one from Kerry Wedler, which I said, this is a very important point because the entire political system is built on violence. I was talking about this earlier. And I don't endorse political violence, but should we be surprised that people resort to it when the entire system is predicated on force, violence, and coercion? And so Kerry says, the shock and disgust at the assassination of Charlie Kirk because political violence is unacceptable rests on the delusional idea that politics is otherwise peaceful and civil. In reality, there is nothing peaceful or civilized about government and political authority. It is literally backed by a barrel of guns, and all laws are enforced through violence. People are conditioned to be blind to this, but on some unconscious level, they must know, or they wouldn't feel so terrified of and resentful towards their perceived enemies getting power through government and being able to force their views on others through politicians and policies. Saying so isn't intended to minimize the inhumanity of killing anyone, but it is a fallacious narrative and a superficial conversation to focus on the scourge of political violence when it's literally built into the system that most people tolerate and even revere. And I think that's an important point. Another article that I will include is from Politico, 10 political violence experts on what comes next for America. It's a short article. It's just these different so-called experts summarizing their views about political violence. And there's only two sections in there that I just want to quote from real quick. One says that, quote, to be clear, a mass movement of political violence is not happening. For the past 3 years, I have tracked public support for political violence, and the data are unequivocal. Fewer than 2% of Americans believe that political murder is acceptable. The core problem is not a widespread desire for violence, but a profound misperceptions of the, quote, other side. My data also shows that Americans estimate nearly a third of their political opponents support partisan murder. This belief that one is facing a vast murderous faction rather than a few isolated extremists creates a phantom enemy that makes the country feel far more dangerous than it actually is. So they're saying that, for one, according to this researcher, only 2% of Americans actually think that it's acceptable to use violence to get your goals. But at the same time, a third of people, a lot of Americans believe that a third of their political opponents support this. So in reality, it's a very small percentage of people, but the perception is that it's a big chunk, like all the Democrats out there, they support violence, or all the Republicans support violence. And so people are out there living these lives in fear of like, oh my God, are they going to come get me next? Are they going to kill me? And it's just creating this fear, paranoia all around it. And this other quote says, quote, it is crucial to acknowledge that this violence is not limited to one particular segment of society. This is not a problem of one violent movement, despite what people want us to believe, but of a social and political system that as a whole is increasingly conducive to violence. This is a hard point to sell to any political base, particularly when people are hurting and understandably feel outraged. But if the United States is to avoid an intensification, but it is essential for people to understand this, if the United States is to avoid an intensification of its current violence escalation cycle. Because it's not just going to disappear and go away on its own, my friends, unfortunately. It's going to take us pumping the brakes and slowing down if we actually want to see an end to it. And I have two final points here as we wrap up on Charlie Kirk. This is me not expressing my support for violence, but just continuing my spiritual and philosophical thought process about the inherent violence in the system. I said, this is the other night, I said, I feel spiritually and philosophically torn. I know that violence is never the answer, and I do believe that. And I see people from left and right falling into that trap, the trap that violence is the answer. I also know that people like Charlie Kirk and others from the right and left support authoritarian policies and government puppets. And I ask, is there a point where nonviolent libertarians, voluntarists, anarchists, centrists, lovers of human liberty and human respect commit to defensive violence to stop the psychopaths from left and right? What I mean by that, when I say defensive violence, I mean, somebody's coming to attack you, you defend yourself. I'm not saying let's go initiate violence against people of the left and the right. But what I am saying is they are willing to use the violence of government, left and right, to enforce their view. And those of us who just want to be left alone are kind of stuck in the middle, watching the extreme left and right race to just use the guns of government as quick as possible. And so I'm asking, like, at some point, are we going to have to defend ourselves against these people? And I said, I know in my heart it's not the answer, and yet we are surrounded by wannabe authoritarians and simps who are willing to use violence, including government, to achieve their goals. And I also said here that it would be a different conversation if the left and right-wing extremists were aiming their anger at the predator class at the top of the pyramid, but instead they're falling right into the Civil War psyop and they're trying to drag as many people down with them as they can. It appears to be working. So what I mean is that if we as a country and as people were coming together and saying, you know what, guys, screw these parties, they've been dividing us, let's come together, we need to figure out who is running the system and directing our frustration and our righteous anger at them, not saying committing violence against government politicians, but focusing our frustration towards them, maybe protesting outside the White House, taking these systems back, refusing to be lied to anymore, then that's something I could support. But instead, what people are calling for, mainly on the right against the left, and then crazy people on the left celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, is this push towards civil war. And somebody wants that. It benefits somebody. And I promise you, it's not you or I, the average person. And my final thought, this is what I posted the other day. This is my final thought, and we're going to get into our next story in just a moment. And while I truly do suspect that Charlie Kirk's assassination is part of a larger operation designed to foment chaos and division within the U.S., Operation Gladio style, I'm also praying and hoping that cooler heads will prevail. Rather than listening to the provocateurs calling for more violence or using this as an excuse to score political points against the other side, I pray people will instead opt to use this moment as an opportunity to come together, to cool down the rhetoric and the hate. To be clear, I'm not attempting to diminish the reality that both sides of the American corporate parties have authoritarian tendencies. This is a reality that we cannot ignore, my friends. The Democrats wanted to round up and force vaccinate people during COVID-1984. They also have a problem with free speech. The Republicans have their own nationalist authoritarian streak as well, as we're seeing with Trump, and they're willing to silence speech when it suits them as well. Both sides are playing into the trap of labeling their political enemies as extremists or domestic terrorists. And as I said a few moments ago, I've been warning about this for years, that this dangerous rhetoric only adds fuel to the fire, and it gives the state the push it needs to use such labels against the broader population. And this needs to end before it's too late. So while I do fear what's coming next and what they're going to do with using this momentum and this energy from the shooting, I'm also doing my part to hold space for rational, clear-headed, honest discussions, and I really pray you guys are doing the same, because it is rough out there. I just spent the first hour and 15 minutes of the show, a good chunk of the show, an hour, talking about Charlie Kirk to try to dissect the minutia, some of the theories, some of the claims, the people who are trying to use it to divide you and turn you to this way or this way instead of looking up and using it to infect our hearts and our minds with this poison of division. And seeing your fellow human being as an other. They're a right-wing extremist, a nationalist, a fascist. They're a left-wing Antifa, Trantifa, etc. I could never be friends with them. I could never connect with them. And again, to be sure, there are dangerous people in the left and the right that I can't align with. And I'm not saying to align with people who are trying to kill you or harm you using politics. But the majority of people aren't like that. The majority of you out there, even if you support Trump, which I think you're completely wrong for doing and you're blind to seeing who he really is, but even if you support Trump, I know that you're not necessarily a crazy right-wing fascist. And at the same time, the people who are against Trump and who like the Democrat Party or who fall to them just as out of default, I know that not all of those people, and the vast majority of them, are not crazy left-wing regressive fascists who want to strip me of my free speech and ban all religion. Surely there are extremists on both sides, but the vast majority are not that. And it doesn't help us build a better world to focus on these division and our differences. Let's acknowledge them. Let's be real about them. But let's also step into a space where we can find common ground. because otherwise the coming generations, the 7 generations and beyond, they are going to be born into a world that I think none of us want. Okay, guys, I want to tell you a little bit more about my partnership with Civl. Again, go to civl.com/TCR to find out more about what we've been doing. I released the first episode of the conclusion of the Pyramid of Power through Civl. The second part is coming out on November. I don't know the date yet, but in November, exclusively on Civl for the first 5 weeks. And Civl is a place where you can find content like mine. You can find documentaries. You can find videos from live events, like they've gone to Freedom Fest and other places. It's just a place, a podcasting platform and a streaming network where they're trying to encourage this sort of coming together that I was just mentioning, building on human respect, bringing people together, individual liberty. And honestly, if you've been following my work, you know that I bust my hump, guys, that I've been busting my ass for a decade plus to do the work that I do. And now that I'm partnering with Civl, everything I'm doing is about to get upgraded, including this podcast and including making new films. That's one of the things I'm most excited about, is starting after the conclusion of the Pyramid of Power, the project and this partnership that Civl and I are working on, we're going to be producing monthly mini documentaries and short films, diving deep, exposing corruption, and also, as always, trying to promote solutions. And I'm so excited about that because while I'm grateful that all of you out there crowdfunded more than $50,000 for us to produce the Pyramid of Power series over the last 5 years, I want to know that I have a consistent income so that I can focus on doing this important work. And I couldn't do it without Civl right now. It is very difficult to be in the independent media, and without the support of an organization like Civl that is not only aligned with my goals, but philosophically aligned, and where we understand what we're both aiming at. I mean, without having that backing, it is so much more difficult to do the work that I do. So I just want to encourage you guys, check out civl.com/TCR. You can learn more about what we're doing. Like I said, you'll get to see the Pyramid of Power first. You'll get to see some of these upcoming films that I'm working on. And you're going to hear me mentioning it a lot because this show is brought to you by Civl. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next story. We got a couple more. We're going to breeze through these ones fairly quickly. This next one, it's an important one. And I want you to remember what we were talking about 33 a little while ago. So in the last week, starting with the beginning of this month, so 10 days ago, Trump and tech leaders met to unite to power American AI dominance. And there's a picture from the White House dinner. You can see Mark Zuckerberg, you can see David Sachs, you see Bill Gates. Remember that guy? Remember that guy during COVID, everybody? Everybody was raising, heck about Bill Gates. Shoot, I helped organize, along with James Corbett and others, Expose Bill Gates Day. So many people were questioning who Bill Gates is, what he's up to, what he's involved in. And now Bill Gates is dining at the White House with Donald Trump. But guess what? MAGA says it's okay. You got to keep your friends close and enemies closer. Now, I'm going to be writing a deep dive article for The Last American Vagabond next week about this because I think there's some important pieces of the puzzle. But I just wanted to put it back into your memory in case you missed it because there's so much happening. This is in response to Trump's, quote, visionary AI action plan and Melania Trump, First Lady Melania Trump's effort to bring AI into education. This is a public-private partnership, similar to the World Economic Forum. You guys remember them? And you had OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Google co-founder Sergey Brin, OpenAI president Greg Brockman, Oracle CEO. Remember Oracle, the ones who had the contract with the CIA, and Larry Ellison. He's involved with the Stargate AI project that Trump launched as well. Apple CEO Tim Cook, Microsoft chairman and CEO Satya Nadella, who, by the way, is a regular attendee of the Bilderberg Group, Alphabet Inc. and Google CEO Sundar Pichai, AMD chair and CEO Lisa Su, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and of course I mentioned Bill Gates already. You had the whole class, other than Elon Musk, and including representatives of Palantir. Let me just do a quick search of Palantir. It'll be on this other one. That were there on September 5th. We're going to dive deep into this. Stay tuned because you need to know how this matters. And it's not just that, okay, some technocrat showed up at the White House and that's bad. That's part of it. But this is much bigger when you understand what Donald Trump's AI action plan is about and when you understand what Melania Trump is focused on. Here's a little article from The Guardian. Be Best Bots. Melania Trump and tech CEOs discuss saturating U.S. schools with AI. Pivoting from her anti-bullying campaign, the U.S. First Lady has inaugurated a task force on AI in childhood education. Now, of course, she claims that they're going to protect the kids and make sure they don't get too much access to the technology too soon. But I think there's reason to be concerned based on the people she's working with. And this is something I've actually been following for some time, because where I'm originally from in Houston, the Houston ISD school district was taken over, and the people who took it over are very much about using AI in their education. And I think that's part of all the kids during COVID, they went to Chromebooks and digital learning, and they want to get them more ingrained in this AI big tech technocracy. That doesn't mean that all AI is bad. Of course, it's a tool. Some of you might swear it off completely. Some of you use it for different things. Some of you reluctantly use it. It's a tool, but look at the companies they're working with. These are companies with contracts with the intelligence networks, CIA, and on and on. These are not people to be trusted. Now, one more article about this big tech meeting. Are you guys ready for this one? Meet all 33 Silicon Valley power players at Donald Trump's high-profile tech dinner. And here's Elon Musk's explanation for why he wasn't there. But just take a look at that. Meet all 33 Silicon Valley power players. So the White House not just invited people like Mark Zuckerberg, as you can see here, kissing the ring, but they invited 33 of them. Maybe that means nothing, but remember a couple of minutes ago how we were showing you how there sure seemed to be quite a few 33s surrounding this Charlie Kirk assassination. Well, apparently 33 people were invited. And number 25 in this article, Shyam Sankar, he's the 44-year-old CTO and EVP of Palantir Technologies. Yes, Palantir Technology, the thing that's funded by Alex Karp and Peter Thiel. Yeah, that Peter Thiel, the Peter Thiel who funded Vice President J.D. Vance's Senate campaign, and the big technocrats like David Sachs and Elon Musk told Donald Trump to choose him. Yeah, that Palantir, the Palantir who's working on all kinds of tools like AI-powered drones and AI killing machines and spy technology for police like the Gotham tool. It goes on and on, guys. So I will be doing an article. Stay tuned for that next week. I just wanted to bring this back to your attention that Donald Trump met with 33 big technocrats at the White House on September 5th. We will be covering that very soon. All right, our next story has to do with ICE. And I know that this is one of the most divisive topics on my show for some reason. Many of you out there, you support what Donald Trump is doing with the immigration police state. You say things like, I voted for this, and maybe you did vote for this, or at least you believe you voted for this. But I don't think you necessarily understand the bigger picture of where this is headed and how supporting a police state and giving ICE biometrics and facial recognition tools and all this stuff because you think it's going to keep you safe from the immigrants is not thinking long term. Just like with 9/11. And in fact, a sort of related story, we're seeing Donald Trump has now bombed 2 Venezuelan boats that are off the coast of Venezuela that he claimed were headed to the U.S. with fentanyl. Maybe it's true. They provided no evidence, but the point is the government thinks they can get away with just bombing people anywhere in the world, kind of like Obama did with the drone bombs in the Middle East. And some of you are out there cheering it, not realizing how you are welcoming in the police state and the erosion of civil liberties. This is for all the people who claim to care about the Constitution. A lot of you sure are selling it out and saying, well, I don't care, Derrick. Fentanyl is dangerous. These are cartel members. Who cares? Or these are illegal immigrants. Who cares if we have to, erase due process? Or who cares if the courts are allowing Trump to ship them off to countries they've never been to that they have no ties to? They shouldn't have come here illegally. I don't care if it was a maid who's lived here for 30 years and has family and friends here and has never committed a crime. She shouldn't have crossed that border illegally. So get her out of here. Let the men in masks round her up and take her away. Some of you are you can't see what you're doing. But this new story, ICE to buy eye scanning technology that could identify migrants in seconds. This is more than a month old, but I wanted to highlight it because I think it's just, again, things are moving so fast, we don't all see what's happening all the time. Procurement documents published on Wednesday show that the agency is seeking to buy access to a service called IRIS, which describes itself as a national web-based iris biometric network. And these documents show that ICE is in the process of acquiring these mobile iris scanning devices from B12 Technologies, and its flagship product is called the Mobile Offender Recognition and Information System, MORIS, as well as another one called IRIS, which stands for the Inmate Identification Recognition System. And they are intended to help ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations Unit verify the identities of individuals in custody and those encountered during enforcement actions. Now, on one hand, you might argue, well, Derrick, at least when they're rounding up people, we can make sure very quickly to verify that they are who they say they are, so nobody accidentally gets locked up without doing anything. And by the way, that has already happened. For those people out there who, again, are choosing to ignore reality and ignore the fact that this is a revival of stop and frisk type policies where many people have been rounded up, claimed to be Venezuelan gang members, and shipped elsewhere, only later to be found that they had no gang history, no crimes on their record. And sure, some of them came illegally. Some did not come illegally. They were just suspected of being gang members. But because so many of you out there are buying into this propaganda, all you have to do now is label somebody gang member or a cartel member, just like before it was terrorist or extremist. And you just don't care about their rights. Oh, who cares? Ship them out of the country, scan their face, digital IDs, do whatever it takes. I'll take a digital ID if that means we can keep us safe from these violent and scary criminals out there and these damn immigrants who are crossing the border. You can't see how you are playing right into the hands of the predator class who want to use situations like this to foment more chaos and to march forward to the so-called New World Order. You get people afraid of the other, the immigrants, right? And you tell them, we're going to keep you safe from that if you allow us to bring in digital IDs to keep everybody safe. That idea has been floated already through things like the Real ID. We're going to keep you safe. All you need to do is allow us to erode the Constitution just a little bit. Just get rid of due process just a little bit. We're going to start rounding people up in the streets. The cops are going to wear masks. They're going to throw them into unmarked vans and take them away. We promise you that they were guilty of something. Trust us. Listen to us. And some of you are falling right for it. A related story that I will link to you. This is a brand new investigation from the Associated Press. Just came out a week ago. Silicon Valley enabled brutal mass detention and surveillance in China, internal documents show. And it's a pretty extensive article here. They have two versions. One's like a summary. But it just shows how different people, like they have a picture of a man. Here's all the cameras in China. This man who is like trapped in his home. There's cameras like right outside his house. He can't leave. And it just shows you how different companies, American companies, are the ones that have developed the surveillance technology, the technocratic surveillance technology for China. This is why when people get caught in this back and forth of, the U.S. is trying to defeat China, or the people who are like, no, China's a good guy, and so is Russia and Iran. They're the multipolar world order that's going to defeat the Western world order. Guys, these are all nations that want to survey and monitor and control their people. These are not good, loving countries. Sure, you can go to China and go on vacation and have a nice experience. That doesn't mean the Chinese citizens have it good or something like that, or that the Uyghurs and Tibetans and other ethnic minorities aren't being targeted with these types of technology. So we see that Dell and a Chinese surveillance firm promoted a military-grade AI-powered laptop with, quote, all race recognition. There's other companies here. Let me see which other ones. They mentioned NVIDIA. Of course, there's Apple and others. And this came about because of tens of thousands of leaked emails and database from a Chinese surveillance company, tens of thousands of pages of confidential corporate and government documents, public Chinese language marketing material, and thousands of procurements, many provided by China File, which is a digital magazine published by the nonprofit Asia Society. Now, again, I know some people will say this is just Western propaganda. I don't think you can be honest with yourself and deny that China does have a surveillance state. Now, you could say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, it doesn't bother you, but where have I heard that before? Companies involved include IBM, Dell, Cisco, Seagate, Intel, NVIDIA, Oracle, Thermo Fisher, Motorola, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Western Digital, Hewlett-Packard, HP. That's the whole point. And they kind of break it down here. You can see American technology made up nearly every part of China's surveillance apparatus, from military and police, surveillance, ethnic repression, identification, censorship, and control. I'm going to link this in the show notes, guys. This is just another story, a reminder to you of how the technocracy is increasing around the world. It's not just in the U.S. It's not just even in China and places like that. And it comes to you through convenience and through fear. They're going to sell you the surveillance state by telling you they're going to keep you safe from the immigrants. They're going to sell you the surveillance state by telling you it's super easy and convenient. You don't have to talk to a human being. Just let us scan your face and we'll connect that to your digital ID, which is connected to your bank account. And you could just walk in the store, grab whatever you want and walk out. It's so convenient. It's great. It's nice. It's fun. Or they're going to sell it to people via entertainment, video games, and things like that. Like, for example, the NFL is already scanning everybody's faces when they come in there, and there's no way around it. But people want to watch the sports ball, so they'll take it. They'll do it. The surveillance state is going to be sold to you through fear, convenience, and entertainment, my friends, and you need to be wary of it. Otherwise, you're going to walk right into it. Okay, before we wrap up with our final story on Jeffrey Epstein, just want to tell you one more thing about Civl. So in addition to releasing the Pyramid of Power, the final conclusions on Civl exclusively for the first 5 weeks, and in addition to producing new mini documentaries and films in the coming months with Civl, we're also going to be working on exclusive masterclasses and skill shares. So for those of you who sign up on the Civl platform, not only do you get access to all of my content, you see the Pyramid of Power first, you get access to all the documentaries that they have and the podcasts that they have, but you're going to get access to exclusive masterclasses. We're going to turn my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, with its solutions and exit and build strategy and philosophy, and make it as simple as possible. How do we turn that into a masterclass, a skill share, and a guide on how to opt out for you and for your family? So I'm really excited about that because we're going to be doing it in professional studios. We're going to be recording this material, and I'm excited. It's going to start happening in the next month or two, and that is going to be sort of a bonus add-on. So you sign up for Civl, you sign up for an annual subscription, use code TCR20 to get a 20% discount, and you get access to the Pyramid of Power. You're going to get access to my future films. You're going to get access to masterclasses and skill shares, and everything else they have on their platform, guys. I can't believe it. I'm so excited to be working with a company who values volunteerism and individual liberty and human respect as much as I do. So check it out, civl.com. That's civl.com/TCR. On September 3rd, I went to Washington, D.C. to attend the Stand With Survivors Epstein rally and the press conference, which was organized by Representative Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna. It was a bipartisan conference bringing together the alleged survivors, victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as the attorney Bradley Edwards. And I went because, I think in one hand, this is a historic event. It's, I never thought when I was investigating Jeffrey Epstein back in 2016 and nobody wanted to listen and nobody wanted to talk about this, that we would be standing, a couple hundred feet away from the U.S. Capitol, hosting a press conference with all of the corporate media, some of the mainstream alternative media, independent media like myself and some friends, victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and attorneys. It was a circus, I'll tell you. There was so much going on. It was a lot happening. But it did feel like a historic thing. Now, that doesn't mean that I think the government's going to solve the day, that we're going to get the truth. But I will say more files have been released, and slowly we're getting more details, like the birthday book from Jeffrey Epstein, which Donald Trump continues to deny was real. He said that there was no picture of a woman with his signature. That came out, and now all the Trump supporters are claiming that's not Trump's signature. But people have gone back and found Trump's signature when he just signs Donald, not Donald J. Trump. And it looks very similar. The point is, the Epstein story is not going away. And I went to this press conference, of course, completely crowdfunded, thanks to everybody who contributed to allow me to go up there. And I took about 20 or 30 pictures that I posted on social media. I put together this 20-minute highlight reel of everything that I saw in DC that I encourage you to check out on the website, theconsciousresistance.com, Stand With Survivors rally and press conference for Epstein survivors. And I also did, after this is just a highlight reel of the entire thing. I also put out a video called Debrief Epstein Conference, Press Conference and Survivors Rally, sort of sharing my thoughts and opinions on everything that took place. You can see this picture. I took this picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie with the Capitol behind and the protesters in the back. So thank you to everybody who helped me fund this trip and go out there, because not only did I get to go out there and put together some nice little highlight reels for you, I was actually able to go to the press conference and ask a question. And I want to play that quick clip for you because, again, if you've known my reporting, you know that I've been investigating Jeffrey Epstein since 2016. I went to his house. I produced a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein in 2018, talking about the mega group, talking about Les Wexner, who's, of course, the founder of the Limited Brands, of Victoria's Secret, and one of the people who has escaped any sort of serious questioning for his role in his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So I took it upon myself to ask this question during the press conference. Check out this quick clip.
Do any of today's survivors speaking, did anybody here ever have any connection or interaction with Epstein's alleged financier, Leslie Wexner?
No. You want to address that?
I just want to say
one thing that's very clear when people say, please share names, there are names that are very well known, like that of Les Wexner, who everyone knows supplied an enormous amount of Epstein's financial wealth and allowed this operation to happen. So it's, I think, confusing to many of us why there have not been more ramifications for him, and he's been seen as a victim when clearly I believe there's more to it.
So that was Annie Farmer, Maria Farmer's sister, for those of you who know who she is. And that was a question that I got to ask about Les Wexner, but I want to show you this. Because of that, because of you guys funding me and me going in person, and I asked that question, local media actually reported on this. If I wasn't there and asking about Les Wexner, this wouldn't have got brought up at all. This article from ABC 6 on your side. This is from Ohio. Epstein survivor says Les Wexner gave him enormous wealth that funded sex abuse. And here's the headline. It says, several of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse survivors spoke in Washington on Wednesday, including one who referenced Columbus billionaire Les Wexner. One of the women who said she was abused by the late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein told reporters that he financially benefited from New Albany billionaire Les Wexner and doesn't believe that Les Wexner has faced the ramifications he should have for those ties. Wexner's name did not come up during the women's prepared remarks at the press conference. A reporter asked afterward if any of the victims here today were aware of connections or ever interacted with Wexner. I'm that reporter. So this is what happens when you do real journalism on the ground. You go out there, you ask a question. I got a little video clip, but it brought this man's name back up in the media, and all of the local Ohio media started talking about him again. So thank you to everybody who has supported my work and allowed me to go on those trips. And I want to say, if you do want to support my work on a monthly basis, go to theconsciousresistance.com/invest. You can send me stuff via mail. You can sign up on Buy Me a Coffee or Substack for monthly support. You can also support me via crypto. The addresses are there. And of course, the best way to support me is to sign up at Civl, civl.com/TCR, because now I am partnered with Civl from here on out, hopefully indefinitely. Hopefully this is a partnership that they feel good about, that I feel good about, and we can keep working together, because as I've been saying throughout this show, it feels good to have the support, the funding, the backing of people who value my work and see what I'm capable of and want to help me take it to the next level, and who also have an aligned mission. So I really thank everybody for being here today. We're going to wrap up now. I just want to make a couple of closing notes as we close the way we always do, with a music video that I think is very, very timeful. I just want to mention to you guys that the reason I've taken time off my show is because I've been writing my memoir. I'm going to tell you more about this in the coming weeks, but I did a video a few weeks ago. Maybe some of you saw it. I'm writing a memoir about my story of depression and suicidal ideation and drug addiction and alcoholism and going to prison at 20 years old. It'll be 20 years this November 2025. I got arrested November 2005. And so I've been working on writing this out. I think it's going to be a very impactful story for anybody who's struggled with addiction or knows somebody who has, and it's been very healing for me, and I can't wait to share it with you. So that's why I haven't been producing much content or writing articles or doing anything really other than working on that book. But now every Monday, I'm going to be back doing the Conscious Resistance podcast brought to you by Civl, and we're working on the final episode of the Pyramid of Power. I got new videos and new reports coming out, including next week I'll be releasing a 5-year progress report on my project, the Conscious Agora Eco Village, that I've been working on since 2020 with my partner, Miriam Gomez. We started looking for land in September 2020 during the COVID-1984. As of this year, we paid off the land. We've got 6 households. We're about to start designing our home sites. We're starting building in 2026. And I have a lot to share that I hope will be really useful for those of you out there. So stay tuned for that next week. I'll also be releasing some more talks. A talk I gave recently at the Sound Path of Freedom Music and Truth Festival. And I think that's it, guys. So I hope to see you maybe this week at the Thrive Alive Vegan Fest in Kansas. If not, stay tuned for more events and stay tuned for more shows. My closing thought for tonight, guys, is that with everything going on, we need to do more than ever to come together, to stop othering other people, to stop demonizing other people. Yes, let's call out corruption. Let's call out evil. Do not sink to evil. Do not embrace it. Do not become part of it, especially by participating in the political corrupted system. Yet, don't fall to the idea that says that if only used violence this one time, you might be able to create the free world you think is possible. I know in my heart of hearts that we will not get to the free world where all relationships are based on voluntarism and free of coercion and they're all consensual. We won't get there by using violence. We have to rise above that. We have to do better than the past generations. We have to do better than past revolutions. We have to go past this idea of revolution and revolving and going in circles and cycles. Revolution, civil war, violence begets violence. We can do better than that. We have to come together. This is what my work at the Conscious Resistance is about. This is what Civl is all about. How do we find ways to come together to establish human respect, to establish our own self-ownership, our own sovereignty, rise above the evil, reject it, push back against it, and yet don't give in to the violence, because that will not take us forward. It will only take us backwards. And right now, humanity needs to move forward as quick as possible, and we need everybody to come together. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that if we do not choose to rise above what we're seeing, the division, the chaos, and the calls for violence, we are not only failing the coming 7 generations and beyond, the ones that are not even born yet but are dependent on us, but we are failing our ancestors who have come from before us. No matter where you come from on this planet, what your skin color is, what your language is, all of us, all of our ancestors had to go through blood, sweat, and tears to get us here. And I refuse to sell out the coming generations and to sell out my ancestors. So I hope you'll join me on this journey to building a world based on human respect, voluntarism, and individual liberty. Until next time, my friends, remember, you are powerful, you're beautiful, and you are free. Enjoy this song from me, 33, called Manifesting a Future.
Check 1, 2, 33. Yeah. We got the divine on our side, cause we stay aligned. We're connected to the great spirit, both heart and mind. We are the creators that we've been waiting for. There's nothing left to do, just close your eyes and explore. They think they can divide us, but we won't let them win. We are stronger together, more united than we've ever been. They trying to divide us, but they can't stop the free people, cause we're manifesting a future where all life is equal. They think they can divide us, but we won't let them win. We are stronger together, more united than we've ever been. They trying to divide us, but they can't stop the free people, cause we're manifesting a future where all life is equal. I never thought I'd get to see so many beautiful people chasing the life of their dreams, yeah, they're free of evil. I look around and I can see what we're capable of, so I count the blessings as they rain down from above. Forgive those who wronged you, cause it's only holding you back. Remember, no one gets out of this life with their ego intact. I take nothing for granted, so thanks for the mentions, but I still find myself walking these streets, asking these questions. Like, how can I walk past the garbage in the rivers and streams? How can I walk past the houseless human with broken dreams? Why do we scroll past the images of war and uncomfortable scenes? I wonder what it'll take for us to evolve as human beings. So much missed opportunity, wasted lives, sharpened knives. My enemies waiting to turn their back and tell more lies. But I got the truth on my side, and I'm walking with the divine. No more middlemen, this connection with God is finally mine. They think they can divide us, but we won't let them win. We are stronger together, more united than we've ever been. They trying to divide us, but they can't stop the free people, cause we're manifesting a future where all life is equal. They think they can divide us, but we won't let them win. We are stronger together, more united than we've ever been. They trying to divide us, but they can't stop the free people, cause we're manifesting a future where all life is equal. Nothing can stop the march of the unwashed minds. We've spent so much time just waiting for the signs. The messages in a bottle sent through space and time to remind us of our full potential when we are aligned with the Creator's plan and our own true purpose. I'm walking on clouds, man, cause I know I deserve this. Joy, peace, flow state, creation, manifestation. That's all it takes, no more need for explanation. The answers are already in your heart, take a look. Deep inside, your story's being told, you're writing the book of your own life. Take it to new heights, believe in yourself. Anything is possible when you show love and trust yourself. Don't give up, forgive them, give thanks and trust in the Most High. The sooner you cut the dead weight, the sooner you will fly. If you keep ignoring the trauma, sooner or later it festers. Remember, you are never alone, you walk with your ancestors. 33, out.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.